Hello gamers, it is Trav again with Handheld Horizon. Today we are talking about the RG35XXH, or the H as I will call it during this review. It's a really interesting device that I really like overall. It is very small, extremely pocketable, and surprisingly powerful for such a small device. The H can play up to PSP and N64, which makes this a great device to take on the go. However, the device is not without its faults. Today, I'm going to be reviewing this device and letting you know what's good about it and what is not so good. Let's get started. The first thing you will notice is that the H has a 3.5-inch 640 by 480 screen, which for some reason looks smaller to me than the same screen on the RG35XXH, the sibling of this device. I don't know if I'm falling for some sort of optical illusion here, but to me the screen on the H just feels smaller compared to the SP or a device like the Mio Mini Plus. It might have something to do with the horizontal form factor and my hands taking up some of the visual real estate, but anyways, we move. This device is made from plastic, but the overall feel is very premium and it does not give off a cheap feeling in the hand at all. The texture is slightly gritty with a matte finish. The H is also available in three colors, a transparent white, transparent purple, and this model a solid black. I do like the look of the black model, as it is pretty sleek and not super flashy for when you pull it out in public. This honestly looks very similar to a modern smartphone when you have it in your hand like this. So overall, I think it's really great. You can play a ton of games on this thing, including all the systems that you're familiar with: NES, SNES, PS1, Dreamcast, DS, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, all the way up to PSP and N64. The H has a 3000 mAh battery, which should get you anywhere from about 3 to 6 hours of gameplay, depending on which system you are running. Next up, we have the buttons on the front of the device, which are mostly excellent. The face buttons have a glossy look and slightly clicky feel with a little bit of squish. The D-pad here is mostly mushy with a bit of tactile feedback in the cardinal directions. You also have your basic start and select here, nothing special about these ones, but now we come to something that separates the H from the crowd: the dual analog sticks. You might be asking yourself, why do we need analog sticks on a retro device this small? Well, if you remember before, I mentioned the H can play PSP and N64. Being able to access analogs for those systems really is a big game changer and makes the emulation of those systems feel way more authentic and natural. These analogs are the infamous Nintendo Switch Joy-Con joysticks, which are fine, but just have a slightly cheap feel to them that is okay for a device like this, but it still just kind of bugs me. These analogs must be super inexpensive for Anbernic to procure and install on their devices, which makes sense. I mean, get that money, Anbernic. But I'm hoping in the next generation of retro emulators we can move on from these just meh analog sticks. Okay, let's move on to the sides of the device now. On the left we have the volume up down buttons. On the right we have the power and reset button. The reset button scares me. I don't know why they include something so terrifying in their devices, but they do. On top we have the L1, L2, and R1, R2, which actually have a very satisfying click to them. We also have the headphone jack, 2 OTG ports, one of which you will use for charging, a HDMI port for plugging this into an external monitor, and the function button, which serves as the hotkey enable button. On bottom we have 2 SD card slots, which allows you to dual boot OSs, which is kind of cool, or just expand your game library. And looking on the back, we have some Anbernic branding, and most importantly the back pads, which I think are just a great touch. When you set this down on a table or something similar like a hard surface, the device feels more or less locked into place, and you aren't worried about it getting scratched or anything like that because those pads slightly lifted off the surface. One last thing to mention here is that the H does come with both Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. One catch with the Bluetooth is that you cannot currently connect headphones. This Bluetooth version is only for connecting external controllers. Lastly here, let's get a quick button clickiness demo and a little bit of audio from the device itself. So as usual, the stock front end is just okay. Nothing special, and it gets the job done with minimal issues. However, if you want the best experience for the RGH, I recommend putting MooOS or Newly on here. Personally, I have tried both and currently recommend MooOS as the most reliable and lightweight front end for the H. Newly is a bit more flashy and has some really good themes, but I did run into some bugs with Newly that made me reflash MooOS and run with that on the front end. My experience is that MooOS is very minimalistic and is mostly text-based, which honestly totally works for me. However, when I did have Newly on here, the super colorful themes were actually quite nice, so pros and cons, really just choose the one you want, even though I prefer MooOS. Navigating through this custom OS is very simple, and editing RetroArch settings is a breeze. One reason I really like MooOS is just how simple everything is. You can turn the H on from being completely shut down and be running a game in about 15 seconds. Also really like the sleep feature on the H, which allows you to customize when the device shuts down after putting it to sleep by short pressing the power button. For example, you're playing some Final Fantasy VII, you get a call, so you press the power button. If the call only lasts 3 minutes, you're good to resume quickly. You just press the power button again and you're right back in the game. If the call lasts longer, the device will auto-save the state after your set time, let's say 5 or 10 minutes, and it will shut down to save battery. Then, when you boot the device back up, your spot is saved and you're all set, ready to go. One other great aspect of the H is being able to play computer games directly on it with Portmaster. Once connected to Wi-Fi, it's as easy as navigating to the applications, Portmaster, launching the app, and then downloading the game directly from there. Many of these ports are open source or freeware, but some like Stardew Valley or Balatro require the license files. This is generally a very simple process, and really it's just dragging and dropping files from your computer to the SD card. And I think that this is a super cool feature. What it does is it allows you to play the games that you want on the go, more PC games, and that just makes your library bigger and means you can have more fun. And that in large part is thanks to the upgraded processor on the RG35XXH series. Alright, here I wanted to do a couple little size comparisons to really get a feel for how big this device is. First off, we are going to compare with the RG SP, which is probably my favorite form factor in this RG series. You can see that they're pretty close in size, the SP being a little bit thicker, but overall both of them are very pocketable and are very easy to take on the go. Next up we have the original Nintendo Switch. Obviously two different devices, two different use cases, but wanted to give you a little bit of scale here. The RGH is significantly smaller. You can see it pretty much only takes up the screen on the Nintendo Switch. We also have the DS Lite here, and you can see that in terms of width and height, they're about the same. I will say though that the H is a little bit thinner than the DS Lite, which makes it a little bit more easily pocketable. And now we have the big boy here. We have the Steam Deck OLED. You can see that the OLED just dwarfs the H. It makes it seem very small. So as always, let's get into the standout features of this device. And first and foremost, I'm just going to say the overall look, feel, and form factor of this device is exceptional. You can put it in your pocket, take it on the go, play some games, take it out, and honestly, because of this color in particular, it doesn't really look like you're playing a portable game console. It more looks like you're taking out your phone. So overall, I really like it for that reason, and I think it's really sleek. Portmaster is also amazing. That means you can take your PC games on Steam, for example, and put some of them onto this device, like Balatro or Stardew Valley, or less intensive games like that. So let's get into the not so good. So first of all, button issues. This has never really been an issue for me in the past with Anbernic devices, but this one in particular did give me some serious issues with the right direction on the D-pad and the R1 shoulder button. sometimes they just wouldn't register. I'll give you a little demo here so you can see what I'm talking about. Another thing, the custom firmware for these Anbernic devices is just okay at this point. I do think Newly, MooOS, and Garlic OS are all pretty good, but in my opinion, they're just not up to par with Onion, and I know that is a high bar, but if you want to be the best, you gotta play with the best and compete with the best. Another big one here, the 3.5-inch screen is just not a great size for PSP and N64 in my opinion, so the extra power that you get with this H700 chip, I mean, it's great, but it's kind of all for naught because I personally would never play those games on a device like this. So overall, I really like the RG35XXH. It has a ton of really great things going for it. The form factor, the build quality, the power, and the pocketability are just amazing. If you are a fan of the horizontal form factor with a 3.5-inch screen, you're going to love the H. But for me, I'm going to put this slightly below the RGSP and Game Boy style devices like the Miu Mini Plus. I do want to give a big shout out to the H because it did make me a believer in the horizontal style form factor. However, I think the H just falls a bit short in all of the things that matter most to me. The screen, a little bit too small. System power, great, but that power kind of goes to waste because I would never actually play PSP or N64 on a 3.5-inch screen. Software, pretty dang good, but honestly there's better alternatives out there with something like Onion OS. So overall, the culmination of what the RG35XXH is pretty great, but a bunch of second places make it a device that I will likely not replace the Mio Mini Plus or RGSP handheld as my daily driver. So as always, if you liked the video or got something out of it, leave a like below. If you have any questions or comments or anything like that, always leave a comment below. I really am looking for game recommendations for my handheld emulators. So if you're playing any cool games, let me know and I might just play them myself. As always, if you want more content just like this, hit that subscribe button. I plan on making lots more. Anyways, thank you so much for watching today. Have a good one.